Friends of the media, good morning. Thank you for coming to today's press briefing. The Chief Executive will speak and then she'll take questions. Friends of the media, citizens of Hong Kong, good morning. First of all, let me say a few words about the economy of Hong Kong. Yesterday, the Hong Kong SAR government announced that for the first quarter of the year 2020, when compared with the same figure last year, there was a contraction of 8.9% of our GDP, the worst since we have our records. Yes, many economists have already expected a contraction of the economy, and they were not optimistic. But then for the fall of 8.9%, it was indeed worse than expected. As far as the components of the GDP are concerned, we have recorded a fall across the board, except government expenditure. For those that have recorded a fall, we include the import and export of goods, the export of services, as well as private consumption, as well as private investments. They have all recorded a fall, with the exception of a rise in government expenditure. If I may say a few more words, of course, as far as the quarterly fall of 8.9% of our GDP, when compared with the financial crisis, the SARS outbreak, as well as the financial tsunami, I think this time it is worse than those occasions. At this moment, we have to carry out counter-cyclical measures. In 1998, we had the Asian financial crisis. At that time, the financial position wasn't that good, and at that time, we carried out a number of stringent measures. And I would think that you would recall that at the time we carried out voluntary retirement arrangements as well as cut in expenditures. But then, in the light of the very dire economic conditions, I think in terms of government expenditure and investment, we have to keep up the levels so as to safeguard the economy. Therefore, we have had 2 rounds of the anti-epidemic fund initiatives, plus the 2020-21 budget. Altogether, $290 billion will be spent. And then for the infrastructural projects commissioned by the government, they are not going to be stopped. This is because it will carry out a buffering effect for our economy, in particular the labor market. I'd like to urge the Legislative Council to pass the Appropriation Bill 2020 as soon as possible. And I hope that the PWSC under the FC of the LegCo will expedite the vetting of our public works projects. Now I come to my second point. We are in a very difficult time. I think Legislative Council members must carry out their duties. Other than what I've referred to, that is, they have to carry out their duties at the Legislative Council meetings, pass the budget as soon as possible, and then the Public Works Subcommittee should vet the funding requests. There's also one other very important setup, namely the House Committee. Mr. Dennis Kwok has been presiding over the meetings to elect a chairman. 6 months have passed, and there were 16 meetings. There were almost 30 hours of meeting time. But still, they were not able to elect a chairman and a deputy chairman of the House Committee to transact the business of the LegCo in the normal way. This is deeply regrettable. As I have said, the LegCo itself has the duty and has the capability to carry out self-ratification. Yesterday, Mr. Andrew Leung, the president of the LegCo, announced that he had got the advice from outside counsel. Generally speaking, the 2 senior counsel has said that we need to look at the functions of the LegCo. Both senior counsels have said that, were it for the rules of procedures as well as the House rules, they are clear that before the election of the new House Committee chairman, the incumbent House Committee chairman will still be able to exercise the powers that she or he has to carry out the functions of the House Committee. I've noticed that Mr. Lee, the House Committee chairman, would like to break the deadlock. The SAR government will be patient and will wait for a few more days. Thank you.
Please raise your hand and state your organization and use the mic when you ask questions. This report on the left. Good morning, Mrs. Lam. I have a question about the police force. Senior police force officers have been found to have unauthorized building works in their residential premises or breach of conditions. What is your take on this? And as senior echelon of the government, shouldn't you invite them to give an account? Mr. Rupert Dover, in fact, in 2014, a complaint was lodged with the Lands Department, but that was not properly dealt with. Has it to do with the dereliction of duty of a government department? Why is it that soon after the investigation began, the Director of Lands was redeployed? Next, about the House Committee of the Legislative Council. Well, it is said that there will be 2 separate queues for meetings, and will there be another scandal? And will there be a judicial challenge questioning the binding effect of the motions passed? Which organization? Yes, for the first question, let me emphasize that everyone in Hong Kong is equal before the law. In terms of enforcement action by any government department in accordance with the laws of Hong Kong or land leases, everything is in accordance with the law, and it is done impartially, regardless of who the subject person is. I am not going to comment on that case. I know that the government department is looking into the case, and of course, after completion of the investigation, I will also ask for a clear account about deployment of the Director of Lands, or transfer of the Director of Lands. As we know that the posting of administrative officers grade in the civil service is nothing unusual, and any posting or new appointments must have been under preparation for some time. And Mr. Thomas Chan's new posting has nothing to do with the recent happenings. As for the House Committee, as I mentioned just now, I hope the Legislative Council would rectify itself and resolve the matter on its own. Since external legal advice has been sought from senior counsels, the incumbent House Committee Chair, Ms. Dari Lee, has made a proposal. It is hoped that this proposal could help solve the problem. And should there be a legal dispute, a judicial review can be filed for a court to make a ruling. This is not unprecedented. Well, if it involves law and order, if there is a fight, for example, of course the law enforcement agency can deal with that. But I do hope that we see neither, because it's been dragging on for so long. Hong Kong must move forward. There are so many outstanding businesses for the House Committee to transact. So I make this public appeal to some legislative councillors to mend their ways. Next question. This Mayor reporter on the last row on the right.
First question, regarding Housecom, the legal advice actually says Sarah Lee can hold meetings to sort of urgent matters. What in your mind would be urgent matters? Are they livelihood issues such as the maternity leave increment, or are they, for example, the national anthem law, which is a more controversial and political issue? Which of them do you think is more urgent and the Housecom should take priority in? Second question, with regards to the social distancing measures, will you be modifying the parameters anytime soon? For example, relaxing the 4-person limit to 8, or for example, reopening some public places such as cinemas and schools and pubs. How soon will Hong Kongers be able to resume their life to a more normal state? And the third question, with regards to reports over police officers, one of the high-ranking officers was found living in a flat under the GLL, bills under GLL. Do you think such conduct is acceptable? And other reports indicate that he's also leased out a building under GLL. Do you think that is acceptable? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the 3 questions. I'll answer the third and the second first. As far as social distancing measures, I have explained on this occasion last week the 3 factors that the government has to take into account in deciding on the lifting measures under a suppress and lift strategy. I do feel very strongly, and also echoed by many people in society, that the time for some relaxation, for some lifting of the restrictions that we put on this social context has come. So I would just appeal to you to be a little bit more patient. We will make the decision and announce it as soon as possible. As far as the third question, as I said on many occasions, nobody is above the law. So the law will be applied in the same manner, regardless of the status, the background, the political affiliation of that particular person. So as far as I'm concerned, as the chief executive of Hong Kong and also as an individual, no law-breaking behavior is acceptable. But it is not for me to stand here to judge each and every case, because every case or every complaint has to be investigated and analyzed by the law enforcement agencies. And I'm sure that they will do it as diligently as possible and will give a full account to society, especially given the recent concerns. Now, as far as the House Committee, I have the opportunity of reading the advice given by the 2 senior counsels. I do not recall a reference to the House Committee's current chairwoman only has powers when the matter is urgent. I do not recall reading that particular reference. So I can only say that as far as I understand from the senior counsel's advice, they have made it very clear, having analyzed what has happened in the House Committee meetings over the last 6 months, that if the presiding member's only role and function is to help to elect the chairman and the vice chairman of the House Committee, then many of the matters raised by him as a presiding member and also discussed in the House Committee's 30-hour meetings are irrelevant. They are irrelevant to the purpose of electing the chairman or the vice chairman of the House Committee, including the debates on the security of the electrical building and advocating some non-binding motions and so on and so on. The second point that the senior counsel has observed during the very detailed scrutiny of the deliberations is that there was at least one occasion on the 13th of March in the House Committee meeting that gave people very clear impression that the delaying of the election by the presiding member of the House Committee was quite deliberate, and deliberate for political reason. And the third thing that I observed from the senior counsel advice is, having regard to all these circumstances, then I would say, they are of the firm view. This is a word taken from the senior counsel's statement. They are of the firm view that the prevailing chairwoman of the House Committee should have the responsibility and the power to deal with the business of the House Committee. So what I'm now expecting, and which the Honorable Starry Lee has agreed, is for the prevailing House Committee chairwoman to exercise her power. Thank you.
The next question, the one on the leftmost, Lam from RHK. I would like to pick up the question about the House Committee meetings. So, Mrs. Lam, are you saying that you accept fully the latest legal advice? Are you going to take up the matters with Starry Lee in accordance with the rules of procedures in relation to the resumption of second reading debates of certain bills, including the National Anthem Bill? And I want to know what have you got in mind in relation to the bills that would soon be having their second reading resumed in LegCo. Thank you for your question. I've been with the government for 40 years. Of course, there are differences among legal opinions, and that's why we have been getting court cases, court disputes. Now, if you start to criticize the lawyers for being biased or disconnected when you don't agree with the legal advice given by senior counsel, then that's not the sort of rule of law spirit that we respect. Now, we take the same approach regarding legal advice from senior counsel. The Chief Secretary wrote to the President of the LegCo urging the matter to be dealt with. Well, today, if we are to write a letter to the House Committee, the correspondence will be addressed to Ms. Carrie Lee as the incumbent House Committee Chairwoman. We did so in March in her capacity as the Chairwoman of the House Committee. Therefore, it is just coincidence that we share the same view as the outside counsel. We have always been holding the same view. Now, there is a separate view here, and then the House Committee Chairman as well as the LegCo President are of the view that they can take some action in accordance with the advice of the outside counsels, and we do welcome this. I think we can resume the normal functioning of the House Committee in this way, that is to deal with the bills. That is, the government has introduced the bills, and then the House has to consider whether to set up a bills committee to follow them up. Well, in fact, we have got a dozen of bills which have had their process started at the LegCo meetings. The bill has been read the first time, the second time. It is a matter of whether the House Committee would like to set up a Bills Committee to scrutinize the bill. So the question that follows would be that, are you going to set up a Bills Committee? Time is running out. There may just be 2 months' time before the summer recess. Generally speaking, if you would like to scrutinize a relatively complex bill in 2 months' time, it will be quite difficult, but we'll still try hard to do so. Now, for the House Committee, there's also one other function. Sometimes we see that the Bills Committee of a particular bill has completed its scrutiny, and the government is of the view that it is time for us to resume the second reading debate and then followed by the third reading and passage of the bill. Well, I understand that there are about 7 bills that are in the same category. That is, such bills had already gone through the scrutiny by the respective Bills Committees. Among the 7, there are 2 of them. In particular, the National Anthem Bill, as well as the Patents Amendment Bill. That is a bill to amend the Patents Ordinance. I picked out the 2 of them, and they are unique in the sense that the report of the relevant Bills Committee has already been submitted to the House Committee. So we have only got one final step to complete. In other words, have a discussion with the House Committee chair so as to talk about on which day we would like to resume the second reading debate at a LegCo meeting. So the first thing we would like to do would be a discussion about those 2 bills, because we hope that after the passage of the Appropriation Bill 2020, we would like to resume the second reading debate of the 2 bills which have had the legislative process or the scrutiny process completed. Members may have different views, and they can have a discussion, they can speak at a LegCo meeting, but I don't think they should obstruct the process. Some members, including Mr. Dennis Kwok, have said that they would like to uphold the tradition, the convention, the normal function of House Committee and the LegCo. And what I've been referring to would be the way that the LegCo functions normally. Thank you.